I stood in the dim light of my Seattle attic, rain tapping the skylight like it was trying to whisper secrets through the glass. My fingers traced the edges of a yellowed envelope, the one I'd tucked away for years, sealed with my father's handwriting. "For Clara, when you're ready." I wasn't ready. Not then, not now. But the weight of it felt heavier than the $250,000 check I'd just written. That money, every cent of my savings from 20 years as a public librarian, was for my younger brother, Marcus. He was 32, all charm and ambition, with dreams of opening a craft brewery in Capitol Hill. His wife, Lena, had stars in her eyes when they talked about it. Hops, barrels, a neon sign glowing, red cedar brew. I handed Marcus the check in their cramped apartment, the air thick with the scent of fresh paint and hope. "This is for us," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "For family." Marcus hugged me so tight I could feel his heartbeat, promising I'd always have a place with them. I believed him. I had to. But promises are fragile things, like the paper cranes I used to fold for story time at the library. Marcus and Lena's brewery took off fast, too fast. Within months, Red Cedar Brew was the talk of Seattle, with lines out the door and Instagram posts of frothy IPAs under string lights. They bought a sleek loft above the brewery, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, and I moved in. My room was a converted storage nook, barely big enough for a twin bed and my old oak bookshelf. No closet, just a curtain rod I hung my cardigans on. I didn't mind. The hum of the brewery below, clinking glasses, laughter felt like home. I'd wake early, make coffee, and slip downstairs to polish tables before opening. Lena taught me how to work the tap system, though her smile tightened when I fumbled. Marcus would wink and say, "Clara's our secret weapon." I thought he meant it. Then the whispers started. I'd catch Lena muttering to friends about extra baggage when she thought I was out of earshot. Marcus stopped joining me for morning coffee, always too busy with suppliers. One night I found the brewery's Wi-Fi password changed, my laptop useless. Lena shrugged it off. "Tech glitch," she said, but her eyes didn't meet mine. I kept quiet, kept shelving glasses, kept smiling. I'd raised Marcus after Dad died, bandaged his scraped knees, read him Tolkien under a flashlight. I wasn't just his sister, I was his anchor. But anchors can be cut loose. One rainy evening, I overheard them in the brewery's back office. I was wiping down the bar, the cedar-scented polish stinging my nose, when Lena's voice sliced through the hum of the fridge. "She's in the way, Marcus. We can't expand with her clinging to half the deed." My heart stopped. I owned 50% of Red Cedar. My name was on the title, a safeguard I'd insisted on when I gave them the money. Marcus's voice was low, hesitant. "We'll make her uncomfortable. She'll leave on her own." I stood there, rag in hand, staring at the bar's grainy wood. My brother, the boy I'd taught to tie his shoes, was plotting to push me out. For space. For profit. For a life I wasn't part of. I didn't confront them. I went upstairs, packed a single suitcase, my heart pounding not with anger but with something heavier, grief. I pulled out the envelope from Dad, still unopened, and tucked it into my coat. By morning, I was gone, checking into a cheap motel near the waterfront, the deed to Red Cedar in my bag. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them erase me, not without a fight. The motel smelled of stale coffee and damp carpet, the kind of place where dreams go to fade. I sat on the edge of a lumpy mattress, the Seattle rain drumming outside, my suitcase open like a wound. Inside was Dad's envelope, its edges soft from years of hiding, and the Red Cedar deed, my name inked next to Marcus's. I didn't open the envelope, not yet. My fingers lingered on the deed instead, a reminder of the $250,000 I'd poured into my brother's dream. I'd thought it was our dream. Now I wasn't so sure. The neon glow of a diner sign flickered through the window, casting shadows on the wall. I stared at them, replaying Lena's words. "She's in the way." Marcus's hesitation hadn't softened the blow. He agreed. My little brother, who used to cling to me during thunderstorms, had chosen space over sister. I didn't cry. I'd learned long ago, shelving books in the quiet of the library, that tears don't solve silence, they amplify it. So I stayed silent too, I didn't call Marcus or text Lena. I just unpacked my few belongings, a photo of Dad laughing at Pike Place Market, a worn copy of The Hobbit asterisk, my librarian's badge. The motel's Wi-Fi was spotty, but I didn't need it. I needed clarity. I walked to the diner next door, ordered a black coffee, and sat in a vinyl booth, watching rain streak the glass. The waitress, a woman with gray streaks in her braid, refilled my cup without asking. "Rough night," she said. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She didn't push, just slid a slice of pie my way. "On the house," she whispered. Her kindness stung more than Lena's cruelty. Back in my room, I pulled out the deed again. Red Cedar Brew wasn't just a building. It was my sacrifice, my trust, my last tie to Marcus. I'd given up my savings, my security to see him soar. And now they wanted me gone, not just from their home, but from the deed itself. I could have stormed back, waved the paper in their faces, demanded my place. But that wasn't me. I'd spent years teaching kids to find answers in stories, not fights. So I waited, the envelope from Dad burning a hole in my coat pocket. I still wasn't ready to open it, but its weight anchored me. Then the call came. It was a Tuesday, the sky bruised purple over Puget Sound. I almost didn't answer, unknown number, but something nudged me. "Ms. Clara Vega?" a man's voice asked, crisp and professional. "This is Tom from Pacific Trust Lending. You're listed as co-owner of Red Cedar Brew at 214 Capitol Hill Avenue." My stomach twisted. "There's an issue," he continued. "Your brother, Marcus Vega, took out a $120,000 loan against the property for brewery expansion. He's missed 4 payments. We're initiating foreclosure proceedings unless the balance is cleared by next Friday." I sat down hard on the motel bed, the phone cold against my ear. Marcus hadn't told me. Not about the loan, not about the default. He'd gambled our future, my future, without a word. I asked Tom for details, my voice calm despite the storm inside. The loan was for new equipment, a second location, a dream Marcus hadn't shared. Lena probably knew, her ambition always outpaced his. I thanked Tom, hung up, and stared at the deed. I could pay the loan, save the brewery, save them. But why? They'd schemed to push me out, to strip me of my share. I thought of Dad, his steady hands teaching me to fold paper cranes, his voice saying, "Clara, you don't owe anyone your piece." I pulled out a pen, the same one I'd used to sign library cards for kids, and signed the foreclosure release form Tom emailed me. I didn't hesitate. The brewery wasn't mine anymore, not in their eyes. Let it fall. I mailed the form the next morning, the envelope heavy in my hands. As I dropped it in the mailbox, the rain stopped and a sliver of sunlight broke through. I didn't feel triumph, just a strange stillness. Marcus and Lena didn't know it yet, but their dream was crumbling, and I just lit the fuse. The motel room felt smaller each day, the walls closing in like the pages of a book I couldn't finish. I'd lie awake, the hum of the freeway outside mixing with the memory of Marcus's voice. "Make her uncomfortable, she'll leave." I didn't call him, didn't text Lena. I just sat with the deed to Red Cedar Brew, my name staring back like a ghost I wasn't ready to bury. The envelope from Dad stayed unopened in my coat, its weight a quiet companion. I'd catch myself reaching for it, then stop. Not yet. The Seattle rain kept falling, smearing the world outside my window into a watercolor blur. I thought I could stay invisible, let the foreclosure run its course, let Marcus and Lena face their own mess. But they had other plans. It started with a ping on my phone, late on a Thursday. A friend from the library sent me a screenshot from Instagram. Lena's post, a selfie with red-rimmed eyes, captioned, "Betrayed by family. We poured our hearts into Red Cedar and now it's slipping away because of someone we trusted." My name wasn't there, but it didn't need to be. The comments were a flood, strangers calling me cruel, a greedy sister who sabotaged their dream. Marcus chimed in, posting a grainy photo of us from years ago, me pushing him on a swing at Golden Gardens Park. "Family should lift you up, not tear you down," he wrote. My chest tightened. They were rewriting me, turning me into the villain of their story. I scrolled through the hate, each word a pinprick. Disgusting. How could she? Poor Lena. I wanted to scream, to post the truth. The $250,000 I gave, the loan they hid, the deed with my name. But I didn't, not yet. I walked to the waterfront, the air sharp with salt and diesel. Gulls screamed overhead, and I stood by the ferry terminal watching boats cut through the gray waves. I'd spent my life teaching kids to find courage in stories, but now I felt like a character in someone else's tragedy. I thought of Dad, his calloused hands folding paper cranes, his voice steady. "Clara, you don't fight lies with noise. You fight them with truth." I went back to the motel, pulled out my laptop, and started gathering proof. The deed. The bank transfer for $250,000. The email from Tom at Pacific Trust Lending detailing Marcus's $120,000 loan. I saved screenshots of Lena's texts to a friend, one I'd seen by accident when she left her phone on the brewery counter. "Once Clara's gone, we can refinance and expand." Every piece was a brick in a wall I was building, not for revenge, but for clarity. I didn't post anything. Instead, I emailed the evidence to a local blogger, Mia, who ran a Seattle food scene newsletter. I'd met her at the library years ago when she was researching urban farming. "This is my side," I wrote. "Do what you think is right." I hit send and felt my pulse slow, like I'd finally exhaled. The next morning, Mia's post went up. "The truth behind Red Cedar Brew's fall." She laid it out: my money, Marcus's loan, Lena's texts. No drama, just facts. By noon, the comments on Lena's Instagram had shifted. "Is this true? Why didn't you tell the whole story? Shame on you." I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. The truth was out, and it was louder than their lies. But Marcus didn't stop. He called that night, his voice thick with panic. "Clara, why'd you do this? We're losing everything." I listened, my finger hovering over the end call button. He wasn't sorry, just scared. I hung up without a word, my hands shaking. The foreclosure notice was already taped to Red Cedar's door, a bright yellow scar on their dream. I didn't feel joy, just a hollow ache. They depainted me as the monster, but I wasn't the one who'd gambled our future. I sat on the motel bed, Dad's envelope in my lap. Was I ready to open it now? Or was there another secret waiting to break me? The motel's neon sign buzzed outside my window, a restless hum that matched the churn in my chest. I hadn't slept properly since Marcus's call, his voice echoing. "We're losing everything." Not "I'm sorry," not "I was wrong," just the raw edge of fear. I didn't answer him again. The deed to Red Cedar Brew sat on the motel's chipped desk, next to Dad's unopened envelope, both like relics from a life I no longer recognized. Seattle's rain had stopped, leaving a damp chill that seeped into my bones. I wrapped myself in a wool scarf, one I'd knitted during slow nights at the library, and walked to the diner across the street. The waitress, Ellie, nodded as I slid into my usual booth. "You look like you're carrying the world," she said, pouring coffee. I managed a half-smile. "Just half a brewery," I muttered. She didn't ask, just left a slice of apple pie. I ate slowly, the sweetness sharp against the bitterness in my throat. Back in my room, I avoided my phone. Mia's blog post had spread, a slow burn across Seattle's social media. Red Cedar's Instagram was a battlefield, comments split between those defending Marcus and Lena and others demanding answers. "Where's the $250,000 Clara gave you?" one read. I didn't look for long. Their lies had unraveled, but I wasn't celebrating. I'd raised Marcus, tucked him in, driven him to soccer practice in Dad's old pickup. Now he was a stranger, and I was the villain in his story. I thought of confronting him, showing up at the brewery with the deed in hand, but what would it change? They'd already chosen their path. Then Lena showed up. It was a gray morning, the motel parking lot slick with puddles. I heard a soft knock and peered through the peephole. She stood there, hair pulled back, holding a bundle in her arms, a baby wrapped in a soft blue blanket, my niece. My heart caught a pang I hadn't expected. I opened the door an inch. "Clara," she said, her voice low, "can we talk, please?" Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on the edge of the bed, rocking the baby gently. "This is Ava," she said, her eyes red. "She's 2 months old." I nodded, keeping my distance, my arms crossed. Ava's tiny hand curled around Lena's finger, and for a moment I saw Marcus as a baby, his chubby fists grabbing at my hair. I shook the memory off. "Messed up," Lena said, her voice breaking. The loan, the posts, everything. We're drowning, Clara. The brewery's gone. We're staying in a friend's basement. She looked at me, tears spilling. Ava deserves better. You're her family. Her words hit like a wave, pulling at the part of me that still wanted to fix things, to be the sister who saved the day. But then I saw it, a glint in her purse, the edge of a phone propped just so, its camera lens catching the light. She was recording. My blood went cold. You're filming this, I said, not a question. Lena's face froze, then crumpled. It's not like that, she stammered. We just needed proof in case you, I cut her off. Get out. My voice was steady, but my hands shook. Take Ava and don't come back. She stood, clutching the baby, her eyes darting to the phone. Clara, please, she's your niece. I stepped closer, my voice low. She's your daughter. Raise her better than you've treated me. Lena left, the door clicking shut behind her. I sank onto the bed, my breath ragged. They hadn't come for forgiveness. They'd come for a soundbite, a clip to twist online. I thought of Dad's envelope, still sealed, and wondered if it held answers to why I kept trusting people who broke me. I didn't open it. Instead, I pulled out my notebook and wrote one line. They wanted my story. I'll give them the truth. What that truth was, I wasn't sure yet, but it was coming, and it wouldn't be on their terms. The motel room felt like a cocoon, tight and temporary, but mine. I sat at the desk, the deed to Red Cedar Brew spread out like a map of a life I'd lost. Dad's envelope lay beside it, still sealed, its edges curling like it was impatient for me to face whatever was inside. Outside, Seattle's drizzle painted the world in grays, but I felt a spark of something new, anger maybe, or resolve. Lena's visit had cracked something open. Her tears, Ava's tiny hand, the hidden phone camera, they weren't just a betrayal, they were a performance. I'd spent years teaching kids to find truth in stories, but now I was living one, and the truth was all I had left. I wasn't going to let Marcus and Lena rewrite me anymore. I opened my laptop, the screens glow harsh in the dim room. Mia's blog post about Red Cedar had stirred the pot, but it wasn't enough. People were still commenting on Lena's Instagram, some defending her, others unsure. I needed to close the story, not for them, but for me. I started typing an email to Mia, attaching everything. The deed, the $250,000 bank transfer, the loan default notice from Pacific Trust Lending, and a screenshot of Lena's text about refinancing once I was gone. I wrote, "This isn't revenge, it's clarity. Share it if you think it matters." I hit send and felt my shoulders loosen, like I'd set down a bag of books I'd carried too long. Then I walked to the diner, ordered coffee, and waited. Ellie, the waitress, slid into the booth across from me during her break. "You okay, hun?" she asked. I nodded, but my eyes must have betrayed me. She patted my hand. "Whatever it is, you're stronger than it." By morning, Mia's updated post was everywhere. Red Cedar Brew, the sister's side hit Seattle's social media like a tidal wave. She de-included my evidence, laid out clean and sharp, my sacrifice, Marcus's secret loan, Lena's manipulation. The comments exploded. They used her. How do you do that to your own sister? I didn't read them all, but I saw enough. Friends from the library texted me, shocked. My old neighbor, Mrs. Chen, sent a message. "Clara, you deserved better." I didn't reply. I didn't need their pity. I needed to move forward. But Marcus and Lena weren't done. A new post appeared on Red Cedar's Instagram, a video of Lena holding Ava, tears streaming. "We made mistakes," she said, "but Clara's destroying our family out of spite." Marcus stood behind her, silent, his face tight. The comments were brutal. "Shame on you, Clara. You're tearing apart a baby's future." My stomach twisted. They were doubling down, using Ava as a prop. I walked to the waterfront, the wind sharp off Puget Sound. Gulls wheeled overhead, their cries like accusations. I'd expected their lies, but not this, using a child to paint me as heartless. I thought of Dad, his voice steady when I'd failed a math test. "Clara, truth doesn't need volume, it just needs time." I went back to the motel and printed copies of everything, deed, loan notice, texts, at the front desk's ancient printer. I mailed them to Mrs. Chen, my old pastor, and a librarian friend who'd offered to help. No note, just proof. Let them spread it. I wasn't fighting their war online, I was ending it. That night my phone buzzed, Marcus again. Clara, please, let's talk. We're losing Ava's home. His voice was raw, but I heard the edge, panic, not remorse. I didn't answer. I sat on the bed, staring at Dad's envelope. Was it time? Lena, 9 months pregnant, desperate to save their brewery, plotting to oust me. I'd signed away my share, let the foreclosure notice land. But what was in that envelope? What had Dad known that I did? I slid it into my pocket, my heart racing. Whatever it held, it was coming for me next. The motel's fluorescent light flickered, casting jagged shadows across the room. I sat on the bed, Dad's envelope in my hands, the paper soft and heavy with years of waiting. Outside, Seattle's night was quiet, the rain a soft murmur against the window. I'd been carrying this envelope for a decade, since Dad's funeral, when he'd left it with his lawyer for me. "When you're ready," he'd written on the front. I hadn't been ready. Not when I gave Marcus my savings, not when I moved into Red Cedar Brew, not even when I signed the foreclosure release. But now, with Marcus and Lena's lies spreading like wildfire online, with Ava's tiny face in their videos twisting my heart, I couldn't wait anymore. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal, the sound sharp in the silence. Inside was a single sheet, Dad's handwriting slanted but clear, and a smaller, folded note tucked behind it. I read, and the world tilted. "Clara," it began, "if you're reading this, you're at a crossroads. I've watched you carry the family since you were a girl, Marcus, me, Eve. Ryan, but you're not their keeper. Marcus has my stubbornness, my flaws. He'll hurt you, not because he wants to, but because he doesn't know how to carry his own weight. When that happens, don't break yourself to fix him. You're my daughter, not my debt." My throat tightened. Dad had seen it coming, Marcus's charm, his recklessness. The smaller note was different, written in a hurried scrawl. "There's a trust fund, Clara. $150,000 for you, not him. Call Mr. Ellison at Cascade Trust. He knows." I dropped the letter, my breath shallow. A trust fund. Dad had left me something, hidden all these years, and I'd never known. I sat there, the motel's hum filling the silence. I'd given Marcus everything, my savings, my security, thinking it was for family. But Dad had known better. He'd known Marcus would take until I had nothing left. I thought of the foreclosure, the yellow notice taped to Red Cedar's door. I'd let it happen, thinking it was justice, but now it felt like something else. Like I'd been carrying Dad's wisdom without knowing it. I called Mr. Ellison the next morning, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. He confirmed it. $150,000 set aside in my name, untouched. Enough for a fresh start. I didn't cry. I felt light, like I'd shed a skin I didn't know I was wearing. But Marcus and Lena weren't done. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Clara, it's Lena. We're evicted. Ava's got nowhere to go. Please meet us." I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. I knew it was a trap, another performance, another clip for their Instagram sob story. But Ava's name tugged at me, a thread I couldn't cut. I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop near Pike Place, neutral ground. When I arrived, Marcus was there alone, his eyes hollow, his hoodie frayed at the cuffs. "Clara," he said, voice low, "I messed up. I should have told you about the loan. Let me fix this." I waited, watching him. He slid a document across the table, a consent form to pause the foreclosure, giving him access to manage the brewery's accounts. My accounts. I read it twice, my librarian's eye catching the fine print, limited power of attorney. He wasn't here to apologize. He was here to pull me back in. I pushed the paper back. "No," I said, my voice like stone. Marcus blinked, his face crumpling. "Clara, we're family. Ava needs you." I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "You needed me when I gave you $250,000. You didn't need me when you planned to push me out." I walked away, the market's bustle swallowing his reply. I didn't look back. But as I stepped into the rain, Dad's letter burned in my pocket. He'd given me a way out, a future. And now, I had to decide what to do with it. What was I running toward? Or was I finally running from something I'd carried too long? The rain followed me back to the motel, Seattle's endless drizzle soaking my coat as I clutched Dad's letter in my pocket. His words echoed. "You're not their keeper." I'd walked away from Marcus at the coffee shop, his plea for my signature still ringing in my ears. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was asking for control. The trust fund $150,000 Dad had hidden for me was a lifeline I hadn't expected. It felt like his hand on my shoulder, steadying me as I stood at the edge of a choice. I could have saved Red Cedar Brew, paid off Marcus's loan, kept the family together. But family wasn't a deed or a dollar amount. It was trust, and they'd burned that to ash. I sat on the motel bed, the neon sign outside buzzing like a warning. I wasn't running anymore. I was choosing. The next morning, I called Mr. Ellison at Cascade Trust. His voice was warm, like he'd been waiting for me. "Your father was clear, Clara. This is yours to build a life with." I asked him to transfer a small amount to my account, just enough for a deposit on a new place. The rest I'd figure out later. I walked to the diner, Ellie's smile greeting me like an old friend. "You look different today," she said, pouring coffee. "Lighter." I didn't tell her about the trust fund or Marcus's betrayal. I just sipped my coffee, the warmth spreading through me. For the first time in weeks, I felt solid, like a book finally shelved in the right place. But Lena wasn't letting go. My phone buzzed with a new Instagram post from Red Cedar's account, a video of her standing outside the brewery, Ava in her arms, the yellow foreclosure notice taped to the door. "This was our home," she said, voice cracking. "Clara could have saved us, but she chose herself." The comments were vicious. "Heartless. What kind of sister does this?" My name was everywhere, a weapon in their hands. I didn't flinch. I'd already sent Mia, the blogger, everything, deed, loan details, texts. Her post had shifted the tide, but Lena was clawing it back, using Ava as a shield. I thought of Dad's words. "Truth doesn't need volume." I didn't need to post or scream. I needed to act. I walked to the Seattle Housing Authority, a low brick building near the waterfront. A woman named Rosa, with kind eyes and a clipboard, listened as I explained my situation. Not the drama, just the facts. I needed a home, something small, something mine. She nodded, pulling out a folder. "There's a studio in Fremont near the canal. Affordable, quiet for seniors and retirees." I felt a flicker of hope, like sunlight breaking through clouds. I filled out the forms, my pen steady, and left with a move-in date, next Monday. It wasn't a loft or a brewery, but it was a start. That night, I opened my laptop and saw an email from Mia. "Clara, I'm running a follow-up. People deserve to know the full story. Can I quote you?" I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering. I'd stayed silent, letting the truth speak through documents. But now I typed. "I gave them everything I had. They chose to push me out. I'm not the villain for choosing myself." I hit send, my heart pounding. Mia's new post went up the next day, my words at the top. It spread fast, retweets, shares, a local news outlet picking it up. "Seattle sister betrayed" was the headline. I didn't read the comments. I didn't need to. The truth was out and it was mine. But then Marcus texted late from a new number. "Clara, I saw the article. I'm sorry. Can we just talk?" His words felt like a hook, pulling at the part of me that still saw him as the boy who'd cried when I left for college. I didn't reply. I stood at the motel window, watching the city lights blur in the rain. The trust fund was real, the studio was waiting, and Dad's letter had given me permission to let go. But what was I letting go of? Family? Or the idea of it? The motel's air conditioner rattled like it was coughing up secrets, and I sat on the bed, staring at Marcus's text. "I'm sorry. Can we just talk?" His words felt like a fishing line, cast to reel me back into his mess. I'd spent years being his anchor, packing his lunches, cheering at his games, giving him my life's savings for Red Cedar Brew. But anchors don't just hold, they can sink you. Seattle's skyline glittered through my window, a city I'd loved my whole life, now sharp with betrayal. Dad's letter lay open beside me, its words a quiet fire. "You're not their keeper." I'd signed away my share of the brewery, let the foreclosure notice land, and watched Mia's blog posts turn the tide with my truth. But Marcus's text wasn't an apology. It was a plea for another chance to use me. I deleted it, my hands steady, and felt the first real breath I'd taken in weeks. I packed my suitcase that night, folding my cardigans, tucking Dad's letter next to the deed, now just a relic. The $150,000 trust fund Dad left me was real, wired to my account by Mr. Ellison. The studio in Fremont was waiting, my new start, a place no one could take. I walked to Ellie's diner, the neon sign a beacon in the fog. She slid a coffee across the counter, her eyes soft. "Moving day soon?" she asked. I nodded, smiling for real this time. "Monday. A little place by the canal." She grinned, slipping me a cinnamon roll. "You're gonna make it yours, Clara." Her belief felt like a gift, one I hadn't realized I needed. But Lena wasn't done. The next morning, my phone lit up with a new Instagram video. She stood in a rented U-Haul, Ava strapped to her chest, her voice raw. "We're homeless because of Clara. She could have saved us, but she chose spite." The comments were a storm, some calling her brave, others questioning her story after Mia's posts. One comment cut deep. "What kind of sister lets a baby suffer?" I stared at Ava's tiny face, her eyes closed in sleep, and felt a pang. I wasn't heartless. I'd loved Marcus enough to give him everything. But love doesn't mean letting yourself be erased. I closed the app, my resolve hardening. They'd used Ava as a prop before. This was no different. I went to the housing office to finalize my lease. Rosa, the woman with kind eyes, handed me the keys to the Fremont studio, her smile warm. "You're starting fresh," she said. "Not many get that chance." I clutched the keys, their weight grounding me. On the way back, I stopped at a corner store and bought a small notebook, its cover a soft blue like Puget Sound on a clear day. I wrote one line. "They chose their story, I choose mine." I didn't need to fight their lies online. I'd already sent Mia the truth. Deed, loan details, texts. The world was seeing it. But then my phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Marcus. "Clara, we're at a motel now. Ava's sick, please just talk to me." His voice cracked, and for a moment I saw the boy who'd clung to me after Dad's funeral. I didn't call back. Instead, I walked to the waterfront, the air thick with salt and seaweed. I stood by the ferry terminal, watching boats vanish into the mist. Dad's words echoed. "Don't break yourself to fix him." I'd given Marcus my savings, my trust, my home. He'd given me lies and a foreclosure notice. Ava wasn't my burden, she was theirs. But the voy. Seema lingered, a splinter I couldn't pull out. I slipped my hand into my pocket, feeling the edge of Dad's letter. He'd known Marcus would break me. Had he known I'd have to break free? As I turned back to the motel, a new email landed, Mia, asking if I'd go on record for a local TV segment. My story was growing, and I had to decide. Speak or stay silent? What was the cost of stepping into the light? The motel's walls seemed thinner each day, letting in the hum of the freeway and the ghosts of Marcus's voicemail. "Ava's sick. Please talk to me." I didn't listen to it again, but it lingered like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. Seattle's morning fog wrapped the city in a hush as I packed my suitcase, the keys to my new Fremont studio jangling in my pocket. Dad's letter sat on the desk, open now, its words a quiet drumbeat. "You're not their keeper." I'd let Red Cedar brew fall, sent the truth to Mia, and watched Marcus and Lena's lies unravel online. But the TV interview request from Mia sat unanswered in my inbox. Speaking out meant stepping into their arena, risking more of their spin. I wasn't sure I was ready to be Clara Vega, the sister who fought back, for all of Seattle to see. Yet silence felt like letting them write the ending. I moved into the studio on Monday, the air sharp with fresh paint and possibility. It was small, white walls, a single window overlooking the Fremont Canal, a kitchenette barely big enough for my kettle. I set Dad's photo on the counter, his smile steady as ever, and hung my librarian's badge on a hook. No brewery hum, no Lena's sighs, just the soft ripple of water outside. I unpacked my books first, shelving The Hobbit next to a new journal. I wrote, "This is mine." The words felt like a vow. I walked to a nearby market, bought a potted fern, and set it by the window. The green felt like a promise I was making to myself. But Lena's shadow followed. My phone buzzed with a new post, a tick-tock this time, her standing in a cramped motel room, Ava on her hip. "We're starting over because Clara chose herself," she said, her voice thick with rehearsed pain. The comments were a mix. Some called her brave, others linked Mia's blog, demanding the truth. I didn't watch the whole video. I'd seen enough of their performances. Instead, I called Rosa at the housing office, thanking her for the studio. "You sound settled," she said. I laughed softly. "Getting there." She told me about a community center nearby with book clubs and art classes. "You're a librarian, right? They'd love you." Her words sparked something. Maybe I could belong somewhere new. That night, I opened Mia's email again. The TV segment was with a local station, KOMO, known for human interest stories. "We want your voice, Clara," Mia wrote, "not just the documents." I sat at my kitchenette, the fern's leaves catching the lamplight. I'd spent my life teaching kids to find courage in stories, but this was mine. I typed a reply. "I'll do it. One condition, start with this: I gave them my trust. They gave me lies. I'm not here to destroy them, I'm here to rebuild me." I hit send, my heart racing. The truth wasn't just in the deed or the loan papers anymore. It was in me, and I was ready to speak it. The next morning, I walked along the canal, the water glinting under a rare Seattle sun. A woman at the community center handed me a flyer for a book club. "We're reading Braiding Sweetgrass," she said. "You in?" I nodded, feeling a warmth I hadn't in months. But as I headed home, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Clara, it's Marcus. I saw you're doing the interview. Please don't. We're trying to fix this." His words felt like a hook, pulling at the sister who'd always saved him. I stood by the canal, watching a heron lift into the sky. I'd given him my savings, my home, my heart. What did he have left to ask for? And what did I have left to give? The studio waited, my fern in the window, but something heavier waited too, a choice I couldn't avoid. The Fremont studio was starting to feel like home, its white walls softening in the morning light that spilled over my potted fern. I stood at the kitchenette, brewing coffee in a chipped mug I'd bought at a thrift store, the scent grounding me. Marcus's text, "Please don't do the interview," sat unanswered on my phone. I'd agreed to the KOMO segment, my words ready to carve a space for the truth. I wasn't the villain Lena painted, nor the savior Marcus once leaned on. I was Clara, and I was done carrying their story. Dad's letter rested on my shelf next to his photo, its words a quiet mantra. "You're not their keeper." The $150,000 trust fund was my lifeline, but this studio, its canal view, its silence, was my choice. I'd let Red Cedar Brew fall, let Marcus and Lena face their foreclosure. Now I was building something new, and no one could take it. I walked to the community center that afternoon, the flyer for the book club tucked in my pocket. The room's smee, led of old paper and chamomile tea, and the group, mostly women my age, welcomed me like I'd always belonged. We talked about braiding sweetgrass, about roots and resilience, and I felt a spark I hadn't since my library days. A woman named Joyce, with silver hair and a sharp laugh, nudged me. "You've got a librarian's soul, Clara. You should lead a session." I smiled, the idea settling like a seed. Maybe I could. Maybe I was more than Marcus's sister, more than Lena's villain. But their shadow lingered. My phone buzzed as I walked home, a new Instagram post from Lena. She stood in a park, Ava in a stroller, her voice soft but calculated. "We've lost everything, but we're fighting for our daughter. Clara could have helped, but she chose hate." The comments were a storm, some pitying her, others linking Mia's blog, calling her out. I didn't read them. I'd sent KOMO my story, my truth. The $250,000 I gave, the secret loan, the texts plotting to push me out. The segment aired tomorrow, and I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd spent years teaching kids to face hard truths in books. Now I was living one. That night I sat by the canal, the water dark and still. A heron stood at the edge, patient, unyielding. I thought of Dad, his hands folding paper cranes, his voice steady. Truth doesn't need volume. I'd given Marcus everything, my savings, my trust, my home. He'd given me lies and a foreclosure notice. Ava's face flashed in my mind, her tiny hand in Lena's videos, and I felt a pang. Not guilt, but sorrow for her, for the family we might have been. I pulled out my notebook and wrote, "I'm not their keeper, but I'm my own." The words felt like a door closing, soft but final. The KOMO segment aired the next day. I watched it alone, my fern catching the TV's glow. My quote opened the piece. "I gave them my trust, they gave me lies." Mia narrated, her voice clear, laying out the deed, the loan, the betrayal. Seattle watched, and the comments online shifted. "Clara's the real hero. They used her." I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. The truth was out and it was mine. But as I turned off the TV, my phone buzzed. A letter slipped under my door, no postmark. Marcus's handwriting. Clara, I'm trying to be better, for Ava, for you. I held it, my heart steady but heavy. Was he changing, or was this another hook? I set the letter down, unopened, next to Dad's. I'd read it later. Maybe. For now, I walked to the window, the canal glinting under the stars. I'd built my peace, but something lingered, a question I couldn't shake. What did I owe the girl who carried my niece? And what did I owe myself? The Fremont studio had become my sanctuary, its white walls now warmed by a second-hand lamp and the fern that seemed to grow greener each day. I stood at my window, the canal below reflecting a Seattle sunset, all pinks and golds rippling like a promise. Marcus's letter lay unopened on the kitchenette counter, next to Dad's, its edges curling as if impatient. I hadn't read it, not yet. The KOMO segment had aired, my truth laid bare for the city to see. The $250,000 I gave, the secret loan Marcus took, the texts plotting to push me out of Red Cedar Brew. The comments online had shifted. Some called me brave, others just saw the pain of a family fractured. I didn't read them all. I didn't need their voices to know who I was. I'd spent years teaching kids to find themselves in stories, but this was mine, and I was writing the ending. I walked to the community center that evening, my copy of Asterisk Braiding Sweetgrass tucked under my arm. The book club was small but alive, filled with laughter and arguments about resilience and roots. Joyce, the silver-haired woman, handed me a mug of chamomile tea. "You're leading next week," she said, not asking. I nodded, a warmth spreading through me. I'd found a place here, not just in the studio, but among people who saw me, not as Marcus's sister, not as Lena's villain, but as Clara. I thought of Dad, his hands folding paper cranes, his voice steady. "You're not their keeper." He'd left me a trust fund, $150,000 to build a life, and I was. The fern, the book club, the canal, they were mine, chosen, not borrowed. But Lena's shadow lingered. My phone had stayed quiet since the segment, no more texts from Marcus, no new posts from her. I'd heard through Mrs. Chen, my old neighbor, that they'd moved to a rental in Tacoma, scraping by. Ava was better, she said, but they were struggling. I felt a pang for my niece, her tiny face from Lena's videos etched in my mind. I didn't owe them, but Ava wasn't them. I sat at my kitchenette, staring at Marcus's letter. I opened it, finally, the paper crisp under my fingers. "Clara," he wrote, "I know I broke us. I'm trying for Ava for me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I named her Clara Ava after you." My breath caught. He'd named her after me. The words stung, not with anger, but with a grief I hadn't let myself feel. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer wit. Dad's. I wasn't ready to answer, maybe never would be. I walked to the canal at dusk, the air cool and sharp with the scent of water and pine. A heron stood at the edge, still as stone, watching the current. I thought of Ava, of the sister I'd been to Marcus, of the family I'd tried to hold together. Family wasn't just blood, it was who made space for you, who saw you whole. I'd given Marcus my savings, my trust, my heart. He'd given me lies, but also this, a chance to find myself. I pulled a small stone from my pocket, smooth from the canal's edge, and held it. "This is for letting go," I whispered, tossing it into the water. The ripples spread, then faded. I wasn't running anymore. I was free. I turned back to my studio, the lights soft and golden. My phone buzzed once, a notification from the book club group chat. "Clara, you're bringing snacks next week, right?" I smiled, typing a quick yes. This was my story now, quiet, small, mine. I'd let go of Marcus, of Lena, of the weight of being their keeper. But Ava's name, Clara Ava, stayed with me, a thread I might pick up someday. Or maybe not. For now, I had the canal, the fern, and a life I was building, page by page. What would you do if you had to let go of family to find yourself? Drop your thoughts below, like this video, and subscribe for more stories of truth and courage.